I'm Dr. Doreen Downing. This is the Wednesday Spotlight series. And in my group, I've got women and men who have, in some ways, been challenged about speaking up. And they all have had a particular journey, or they are on their journey right now to find their voice. And today we get to listen to, and I will ask a few questions if there's room, because I've got some people that have wanted to know certain things from you, Carol. So
Absolutely.
let's make room for some kind of questions, and we may get them in the comments. So hello, everyone, and hello, Carol.
It's good to see you again. It's been a while. I looked back over our last session, and it was based on my Facebook posts, which have been getting a lot of look-sees recently because of
Wow.
some of the work I've been doing and the fact that the subject is now not as taboo as it was when I first started speaking about it.
Oh, you just sent a shiver through my body, because I can relate to what you're saying, and I'm sure a lot of people can right then and there. A shiver through my body because of what was taboo is no longer. I mean, thank goodness that people like you have stepped up and said, hey, it's not a deficit, it's a superpower. So I have a bio I'd like to read so people know what we're doing here today. Carol Vincie is a passionate advocate for the strengths and powers of ADD, ADHD. A lifelong entrepreneur, she started her first business at 16, carved out pioneering roles at IBM, and entered the venture capital arena without the traditional background. And her risk-taking, creativity, and visionary problem solving have fueled a career of breaking barriers and proving what's possible. And I also, before we go on, mention that you're the author of A Parent's Guide to Supporting Your ADD, ADHD Daughter. And your mission is to raise awareness, celebrate the strengths, and inspire action steps for not only just parents and partners, but I know that there's a phrase for those of you who are also diagnosed or have this certain kind of gift, I would say, is what Carol says, this kind of power, then her book would also be relevant for you. So, hi, Carol.
Yes. Here's a mock-up of the cover. It's currently in printing. So I'll
Oh,
be launching it next month, which is ADHD Awareness Month. So we
Carol.
timed it that way to take advantage of the national advertising that comes along with that kind of
Yay. And this is part of it
designation.
today, for sure,
Absolutely.
that we're ramping up for this month of focus on how the power of being ADD, ADHD is now being recognized. And you're one of the pioneers in the field. And I remember interviewing you a while ago, it might even been a couple of years, when the book
Yes.
even, you were even not even at that stage yet. So celebrate you.
Thank you. No, I was not at that stage. And some of the characteristics that you read in my bio, there are some of the strengths that I was able to naturally use with being totally unaware that it had anything to do with ADD or ADHD. And
Right.
yet, just by instinct, I
Uh-huh.
raised my hand for challenging projects. I had the confidence to start a business at 16 without any educational background or training. I taught piano lessons to young children, but I just knew that it had to work. And
Yeah.
that's what I try to inspire people to sit back and think about what have you done in your past life that has will shine out as something that said, wow, how did I stumble on that? And that's exactly how I did. And I could have worked at a grocery store, but no, I decided that I was going to do more.
Yes. Well, I remember in one of our first conversations your story. So I think a little bit about your personal story about having a boss who really put you down and tried to, elbow you out. I think I remember something about
Yes,
that,
yes.
but then he recognized. So tell us that story.
Well, you know, I by instinct was able to pick managers and bosses who would tolerate my unique work style. And I phrase it that way because, I didn't sit in a corner and wait to be told what to do or wait for instructions. I was given, a task and I asked what the due date was and what the objective was, and then I ran off and started working. And in the majority of times, that was acceptable. They trusted that I had the intelligence to ask for help when I needed it, but otherwise to get the hell out of the way. But then I ran into someone who had decided that sales was not a role for a woman. And, sometimes you're lucky. And his wife decided that she was moving back to where they came from originally, and he could either file for divorce or follow her, and he followed her. So that was a bullet that I dodged.
Huh?
So sometimes it's luck, but most of the time it was a conscious choice.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
I,
remember that the person, there was a person who didn't believe in you and then saw the value that you brought and went, "Oh my gosh, we need more of what you do."
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And, it was a marvelous time to work in the IT field when it was growing at such a phenomenal rate that you were given opportunities as fast as you could handle them because
Oh,
they didn't have a lot of people to choose from. And I worked for IBM, and their attitude was at the time, we didn't hire from the outside. So we were going to move you up as quickly as you could because we had to develop talent for the higher level functions in the company. And that suited me fine. So 2 years and out was, about as much as I could handle.
yeah.
And even one case, one of the better managers I had, I worked for him for about 11 months, and he walked into his office one day and he said, "You're bored." And I said, "You're right, but I thought I was hiding it better." And he
Oh,
said, "We need to find you your next job."
oh, yeah. Maybe that's the story I
Yeah,
remember where you were recognized. And
yeah.
say more about the I mean, I heard you say something about being quick, and that was valued as one of the characteristics of being ADD,
Yeah, we
ADHD.
absorb a lot of information. Like I was sometimes accused of making snap decisions.
Uh-huh.
But in fact, I paid attention to everything. I mean, we tend to have a steel trap for a brain. And, so you just absorb everything. And then when you have to make a decision, you have what you might have thought were these random pieces of information, but they were actually all the pieces that you need that you could immediately, with a high degree of certainty, make the decision and move on.
Uh-huh.
So that's one of the strengths that I would
Yes.
consider.
Thank you. I get that with the way you just described it too. Some of the questions I know that people have asked is, well, what if you don't value that kind of certainty like you're talking about? And maybe certainty comes with a lot of experience where you have had, taken that moment and acted on
Well,
it quickly. But if they aren't certain, what can you say to people like that who are self-doubting?
you know, this formal statistics is that a third of entrepreneurs are ADHD.
Uh,
My experience is that's probably double.
oh,
So the people who don't have that certainty tend to be employees,
uh-huh.
to work for somebody who's willing to be a risk taker. And those are the entrepreneurs, the people who are willing to put everything on the line,
Mhm.
bet the last nickel that they have, or counter all of the, "You can't do that, it won't work," and say, "Watch me." And they turn it into profitable businesses. In my book, I quote David Needleman, who was the founder of JetBlue Airlines. And he was asked if he had a magic wand, would he reverse his ADHD? And he, without thinking, said, "Absolutely not. I can train people for the repetitive activities that go on in life. I cannot teach people the strengths and powers that come naturally with ADD or ADHD."
Oh, they're the shivers again. folks. Anybody who's listening, you can say, wow, this capacity, this innate and probably born with genetic, would you say?
I absolutely would. I mean, in first grade, I raised my hand when the teacher asked for a class monitor,
Uh-huh.
marched down the aisle, and then, had trouble with phonics, so I wasn't the appropriate candidate for being a class monitor.
Uh-huh.
But it didn't take, I was the first. I didn't wait for anybody else to or her to coax people. The hand went up immediately. Where did
Uh-huh.
that come from?
Oh.
My parents were working class people. I didn't have the background or the exposure to know to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It just happened.
Yeah. The impulse. And then that's one of the things that I think has the two sides
Yes.
of the condition uh, of the gift is that the impulsiveness is you're describing it can be in your favor, but I guess let's talk about place times or how does somebody help themselves not impulsively do something that is
We get ourselves in trouble because of that impulse.
thank you, thank you, thank you. And that trouble is
Well, we're impatient,
yes.
and if we have a solution, we want to air it. We want to, I don't know that take credit for it, but it's just, I got myself in trouble when there was a presentation that wasn't well thought out, and there were gaps or just errors in the document that they were, handing out. My hand went up immediately because I there was a gap and I wanted to know what the answer was, fill in that missing space. And they sometimes didn't want to hear that. I was supposed to sit quietly and just listen because the person in front of the room was supposed to be the expert.
Mm.
So, that was not welcome.
I love what
And
you're saying because you're giving people permission to have this instinct, but also uh, to know that even if there is some kind of what trouble about it, there is a way to handle that, right? I would think.
well, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing because
Uh-huh.
I want to alert people and have them be aware of both, the strengths and some of the risks that come along with it so that you can tamper down that behavior that isn't welcome and address the subject privately so that you're not intimidating, in this case, the presenter. And 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 I was not aware of that. I mean, I didn't recognize that it was disruptive behavior.
Disruptive. Yeah, I know.
You
So
know, it's
so many
it's
kids get that
yeah,
label. You're disruptive. You're go to
yes.
the principal's office.
And that's why our male colleagues in school are 3 times more likely to get diagnosed than, Sally Sweetie, who sits quietly in her desk, turns her homework in on time, and maybe sitting there daydreaming, trying to figure out how to kill herself. Because suicides among females between 12 and 20 is absolutely out of control.
And you think that's related to
It,
ADD?
a lot of the people are,
Wow,
but
thank
it's the struggle
you.
and the fact that you're socialized to be polite
Mm-hmm.
and to sit quietly and
Oh,
listen.
yeah, sit in that chair for hours as a student when you've got so much energy
Right.
and
Yes.
go, 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 and do, and be,
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. And one of the ways, people say, well, why do I talk about ADD and ADHD? Well, ADHD is the hyper characteristic. And
Uh-huh.
if you noticed, I'm standing in this one spot and not moving.
Okay.
So I don't have the hyper version. That's why I use ADD. A
Yeah.
lot of women don't.
Uh-huh.
And one of my colleagues, when I first started my learning and discovery process, said to me, if you had only spoken about ADHD, I would have ignored your work because that's my brother.
Uh-huh. Hyper. Yeah.
So I use both terms, and officially the Now they're saying ADHD, but with 8 categories. And if I started talking about those, I'd lose everybody by the third definition. So I use the broad range of terms, but that's the difference. Now
Well,
our brains keep going, but
yeah.
physically we don't twitch, we don't, fidget, we don't,
Uh-huh.
so we appear, you know, polite and perfect in the classroom.
Thank you. That I didn't really get that before about that particular distinction, and always wondered about what, like, why not just use one or the other? But now I really get it, and thank you. And the audience, I'm sure, is appreciative of. Oh,
Yeah, well, I've had women say to me, I don't have ADHD, I
yeah,
have ADD. They're
yes.
very specific about that.
Uh-huh. Uh, So, okay, I'm gonna bridge before I bridge over, and I'm gonna bridge over to a more common term nowadays since I talked to you last that's on the field, in the field. But before we do that, I want to just get what you would say. I'm doing my fingers here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Any kind of list of, for those who are wondering, do they fit into ADD or ADHD? And I know you just kind of
Yeah.
separated out ADHD, but what would be, we've talked about impulsive, we've talked about quick, the eagerness.
Well, how many sessions do you have open on your laptop?
Well, we have just a few more minutes, so if you could give people who are listening, oh yeah, that's me.
But
Oh yeah, that's
that's
me.
one of them that, you start a project, you don't finish, then you open another page, and then you open another page. And I've had people who've had 15 or 20 pages open on their laptops.
Uh-huh.
That's a good indicator.
Great.
If
Okay.
you have a lot of clutter in your house,
Uh-huh.
that's something because we don't deal well with dull, boring, repetitive activities,
Uh-huh.
including paying bills, because paying bills and balancing the checkbook fits into dull, boring, and repetitive. There's nothing
Columns.
exciting about that, right?
Yes.
So that's another indicator.
Uh-huh.
And, you need to hire a housekeeper, somehow or other fit it in the budget so that you have some help with that because it's distracting and it burns energy unnecessarily
Oh. Uh-huh.
and you waste time because you can't find something when you need it.
Uh-huh.
So those are the two that stand out and people immediately recognize that.
Yes. Well, thank you. The shift I wanted to ask you about in the field as a psychologist, I'm seeing all sorts of research on neurodiversity. How do you relate to that? What do you say about that?
Well, you don't want, when you go into an ice cream shop, there's more than just vanilla.
Mm-hmm.
So you want people with different skills and different thought patterns. Um, one of the questions that I often get is, should I tell my boss if I'm ADD or ADHD? And sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Oh,
Because if that individual, and sort of have to probe at this a little bit, if
mhm,
they're very traditional and only know about the things you can't do and the struggles they're going to have, and you're not going to show up on time because procrastination and lateness is another one of those 5 things that you asked about earlier. And if that's their attitude, I would phrase it differently.
mhm,
I'm working on this really important project and there's a deadline. Is it possible for me to have that empty office so I have some quiet space to work if you're easily distracted? So that's a way to deal with what you need, couching it in a business environment because you're knowledgeable that you have a deadline, and you just need some quiet space. You don't have to get into all the details of why that's important. Or you want to work with headphones because some people like noise or music.
mhm,
And, and some workplaces allow that, others don't. And, again, phrase it in a way it's easier for me not to be distracted by the ambient noise and
mhm.
I can be more productive. And that's what businesses want you to be. increase productivity and have a greater impact on the bottom line.
Thank you. Yeah, I love the tips that you're giving for people out there. And my question about the neurodiversity is that that's a phrase that people are saying kind of like it feels like they are claiming it and feeling more proud of it than they were what might be around saying I'm ADD or that
Yes,
saying
well,
I'm neurodiverse and that's
yep.
who I am.
And that's going to prompt some questions. What do you mean by that? I mean, if you came into my office when I was a manager and said you're neurodiverse and I wasn't educated, I wouldn't know what to do with that.
Yes, good point.
And now, with the current political environment, when all of those indications were taken out of everybody's background, you
Yes.
know, like,
Any
African
kind of,
American
yes.
ball players were eliminated because they were classified as neurodiverse.
Uh-huh.
So there are some serious implications today
Oh,
with
thank you.
throwing that term around. Now, I also know that people under 30 don't give a damn. Excuse my French, I'm sorry. They go, this is who
Yeah,
I am, deal with it or not.
right. Yes.
So there are some age issues. It took me 5 years after I had a label for mine to even whisper it to a close friend
Oh, mm,
because of, all the challenges that I had been through in
yes.
my corporate life. I didn't need to add something else.
Uh-huh.
And I carried that for 5 years until, I mean, now I talk about it all the time. I don't
Written a
care.
book about it and you
I've
show
written a
up on
book
the
about it.
talk shows and
Yes, but and I struggled with getting adults to raise their hand when I would talk about the subject for a year and a half. I was banging against this brick wall,
I
and
know,
they wouldn't acknowledge it.
I know. Yeah.
And that's why when a business colleague of mine said that she has parents coming into her store, she's got your CBD store is a franchise, and she and her husband own two locations. And she said, I have parents coming in to use the non-high version of my CBD products when they don't want to put their kids on Ritalin or Adderall. And she said, when you have a document in your hand, like this is a
Um,
small copy of the book, I will host you to speak to my clients.
uh-huh.
And for me, that's an ideal audience because they've already made the transition that popping a pill in your child's mouth and assuming that's the only answer. So they've made that transition that there are other solutions. So that when I come in and talk about exercise and nutrition, they're more likely to be receptive to that type of discussion.
Okay, sounds like we're there now. So before we get off, we want to hear a couple of what tips around either exercise or nutrition or whatever you not I mean, I think we've worked on the mindset and the acceptance and the empowerment of claiming it, but I think that some specific what to do's would be the
Well,
way we could end the program.
exercise, physical exercise.
Okay.
It makes such a difference.
Ah.
And, the kids are now with their thumbs on their,
Mhm.
whatever those little devices are, starting at 3 or 4 when they're still in strollers, they have their own device.
Yes.
When I was a child, we were out in the vacant yard across the street and we were, running up and down and climbing trees. And then, you know, I now am addicted to golf. It's my relaxation, which a lot of people
Mhm.
find it stressful, and I walk 36 holes a week. It secretes additional dopamine, which science has proven our brains don't produce enough. And that minimizes the negative conditions. And even if you're sitting doing homework for a half hour, 45 minutes, just getting up and doing stretches behind the chair will regenerate your focus.
Right.
And nutrition,
Right.
all the junk food. They talk about shopping on the outside aisles, all the fruits and vegetables and home cooked meals. That makes a huge difference.
Mm. Well,
So,
what you said about the exercise and dopamine and what it does to the brain. It's not just exercise is good for you. You're saying why? Because you get some chemicals that are going to
Yes.
nourish your body, just like food nourishes, good food
Yes.
nourishes your.
Yes. And one of the things that has been scientifically proven is the reason for the condition is our system doesn't produce enough dopamine. So whatever you can do to
Oh,
increase that supply
uh-huh.
helps.
Well, dopamine, let's just say that partly, because I'm coming to an end right now, and I'm just thinking about dopamine and being with you again feels like I'm getting a hit of dopamine. Just, the connection, the connective tissue between people that you care about or that you admire or that inspire you. So that would be part of what I'm taking today about increasing my dopamine is by connecting with people and feeling the powerful, energy that's positive.
Well, thank you. And I always enjoy these opportunities, and I hope that people will, listen to as I will spread this through my networks and
Sure.
look forward to the launch of my book, which is next month.